pressure?
Well, there does seem to have been some suggestion, not least in the newspapers, that there seems to have been some pressure. There's certainly been some liaison between the BCC and Downing Street. But look, let's not lose sight of the real issue, which is what John Longworth, a man who spent years working with small and medium-sized business, actually has said. He clearly feels, and he clearly feels this very strongly, that EU membership is bad for small and medium-sized businesses. Now, we know that there are big corporate interests who rather like Brussels. They can afford to hire lobbyists in Brussels. But here's a man who spent his career working with small and medium-sized businesses who honestly believes that we'd be better off out. Look at it from the broader point of view of the Remain campaign. Doesn't it make them look rather weak that rather than engaging in the substance of the argument, they're having to resort to these removal tactics? Well, given what we've seen, I suspect if he had argued a pro-Downing Street line, he wouldn't have been forced out. I think there could be the application
But you don't have the evidence, do you, for him being forced out? Number 10 have said publicly that they didn't force him out. We've heard here from Phil Smith, who said there is absolutely no evidence.
24 hours ago, I understand that Downing Street was not ruling out the idea that there had been liaison between Downing Street officials and the BCC. The British Chamber of Commerce set out a series of criteria that they wanted to see in a reformed Europe. David Cameron's New Deal has demonstrably failed to achieve that. And I think it's therefore right and proper that people within the British Chamber of Commerce express the disappointment that David Cameron's New Deal is not actually reforming Europe at all. The reality is that Downing Street and the Remain campaign clearly feel weak. So weak, in fact, that they seem to be backing out of the idea of TV debates with the BBC. Downing Street clearly feels it can't engage in the substance of what John Longworth said, so they're having to play the man. Well done the Prime Minister for sending the Navy. That's good. But note that it's NATO on whom we can depend, who's taking the initiative here. The European Union has not only made this problem far worse, Schengen, the open borders approach, the inability of the European system to control its own frontiers, Europe is making this far, far worse. And if, as Mary suggests, we have what is already on the table, a proposal for a European institution to allocate refugee quotas on the basis of at a pan-European level, we will lose the ability as a country to decide how many refugees come here.
Right, if we vote to remain, rejected, hasn't it?
If we vote to remain in the EU, we will end up with a situation where a Brussels institution allocates how many refugees come here. And that is on the table already. That is what people will get if they vote to remain in the EU. Certainly the case that Turkey is unlikely to join the European Union anytime soon. But unless we get a grip, large numbers of people coming through Turkey will join the European Union. We need to be prepared to have a government and NATO that is prepared to take robust action. The European Union has palpably failed to do this. It has made the problem worse.
That the point of view?
It has had months to get a grip on this. It has made the problem worse. 1.2 million people came across the Mediterranean last year. It is NATO that is dealing with the problem. The European Union has only made it worse. Disrespect for Turkey. Let's not blame Turkey. This is a failure of the European project.
We're not going to blame Turkey, but do you think we should be talking to Turkey when they are an authoritarian country?
Of course we have to work with Turkey, but it's the European Union that has failed to control its currency, its debt crisis and its borders. It is failing. It is a failed project. I go to church on Sundays and I also love shopping on Sundays, and I think we should be able to do both. Why not just allow people to make these decisions for themselves? Remember, we're talking about using the law of the land to prevent people from spending their Sundays the way they want. Come on. We live in a free country. Let people do what they want. See, if Comrade Corbyn's running your movement, you're going to look back fondly at the last Prime Minister, apart from Tony Blair, who managed to win the Labour Party an election. I can see the attraction of looking back. But when Wilson talks about the white heat of the scientific revolution, he's a very sort of top-down technocratic mindset. Now, the European Union is built on that very technocratic top-down set of assumptions. In the digital age, I would say that trying to arrange the affairs of tens of millions of Europeans by grand design is doomed to failure. So I think that fundamentally the world has changed from the old days, and I think the government wanting people to vote to remain will lose on this occasion. Mary uses Concord as a great triumph. Sure, it was good at subsidising rock stars travelling across the Atlantic, rather like the European Union. It subsidises rich bankers who can be absolved from the folly of their own investment choices. They get bailouts. It's very good for those who live on tax-free decisions in Brussels. But John Wilkes, who was banned from reporting what MPs said, I think broadcasters should just ignore this. There are all sorts of ridiculous rules that the House of Commons puts in place. Broadcasters should just ignore it. I was told I wasn't allowed to use Periscope to broadcast, and I just ignored it.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.